I think a lot of people dream of moving to a desert island. I suppose it's the ultimate escape fantasy. But real life never seems to work out quite like you imagine in your dreams. In my fantasy, I didn't imagine that my body would be covered in open sores, and I would have to use a portable fan to keep the flies from feeding on me, or worse, laying eggs beneath my skin. Of course, all our bodies will decompose eventually. That's life. I suppose I just never imagined that it would happen while I was still alive.
I've been thinking a lot about pirates recently. I mean, not just pirates, but male archetypes in general. If you look at the kind of men that other men admire and look up to and want to emulate, not just now, but historically in movies and TV, in books, and just in pop culture in general, I think that they all have one thing in common. Take pirates, for example. As I said, pirates have been on my mind lately, probably because I'm living on an island and there's boats everywhere. But stories about pirates have been popular for hundreds of years, and books featuring pirates have been popular ever since the golden age of piracy in the late 1600s. And these stories about pirates still resonate with men more than 300 years later. And why is that? Well, I think it's for the same reason that stories about, for example, cowboys still resonate with men all these years later. And for that matter, rock stars, secret agents, warriors, even the classic rich guy archetype that we see over and over again in popular culture. When I look at all these archetypal male characters, they all have one thing in common, and that thing is freedom. They're all free, or at least they seem to be. They don't answer to anyone. They're autonomous. They make their own decisions. They come and go as they please, whether it's on a pirate ship or the back of a horse or on a private jet. It seems to me that it's the same thing. It conjures up the same feeling in men, a longing for freedom. At least that's my theory. I suspect that's at the root of the male midlife crisis, why so many men hit 40 and suddenly start to feel trapped, end up marrying their secretaries or buying a sports car or moving to an island.
The pursuit of personal freedom is, of course, impossible when you have a family to support. Sometimes I fantasize about telling my wife that I'm going out for a pack of cigarettes and just disappearing. But then I come to my senses and I remember that I don't smoke, and I'm too old to start.
Time seems to pass by a lot faster now than it used to. I think because when you reach middle age, you've got more life to look back on and less life ahead of you to look forward to. When I was a kid, it always seemed like I was looking forward to something. Always counting down the days till Christmas or my birthday. And I think time definitely seems to go slower when you're doing that. Apparently, as we get older, we also make less memories on a daily basis because basically our brains are slowly dying, and it creates an illusion that time's going by faster. The great thing about living on an island is that it seems to pass by a little bit slower. The days seem longer here. It used to be that every time I looked at my daughter, she seemed like she was an inch taller, and then I would feel an inch closer to my own death. But it's not really something I think about these days. It could just be that she stopped growing. I mean, her mum is like 5 feet tall. I think she stopped growing when she was 6. Then again, it's probably more likely that time slowed down because there's basically nothing to do here. I mean, if you sit and stare at a mangrove for 12 hours, then time is going to slow down. A typical day for us here involves being woken up by a rooster around about 7 a.m, at which time we make our way from the bedroom to the balcony. And that is basically it. At some point, someone will make some food, and the highlight of our day is when a kayaker paddles by the shack and says hi. It's a nice reminder that other human beings exist, and that we're not the sole survivors of some calamity that has killed off the rest of the human population on Earth. It does feel that way sometimes. Health is definitely something that we think about more as we get older. As soon as I saw my 40th birthday on the horizon, I had a real sense of urgency that I had to take action, do something. I just had no idea what action to take, what that something would be. I'm 2 years older now than I was then, and I still feel exactly the same. To be honest, I think this is permanent. And I think this is just how I'm going to feel going forward. A permanent state of angst. Or should I say a permanent state of angst, interrupted by periods of depression and apathy.
I'm not a doctor, but I'm starting to think that there might be a link between drinking nothing but coffee and beer for weeks on end and these types of negative feelings. I tried substituting beer for coconut water, but it gave me chronic diarrhea. I don't know what's worse, that my daughter has to watch me slowly drink myself to death, or that she has to watch me try and hide the fact that I've just shit myself in the middle of a crowded noodle restaurant. I suppose time will tell.
Blackbeard the pirate used to mix rum with gunpowder and light it on fire before he drank it. As I said, I've been thinking a lot about pirates lately, and I actually have a theory about Blackbeard. Blackbeard's real name was Edward Teach, or some slight variation of that name, and he actually became a pirate later on in life, most likely at the age of 36. On average, people didn't live that long back then. So men probably had their midlife crisis a few years earlier. Did Edward Teach become a pirate because he was having a midlife crisis? I think it's a solid theory. Edward didn't last that long as a pirate. He actually died within a couple of years. But who among us wouldn't take that deal? 2 years sailing the high seas as the most feared pirate in the world. A legend both in your own lifetime and more than 300 years later. Blackbeard died fighting alongside his men, and despite being outnumbered around about 2 to 1, one of the last things that he did just before the battle began was to order a glass of wine from one of his men and declare that no quarter should be given, and nor would he ask for any. In other words, if you want to fight, it's a fight to the death. That's badass. Maybe the only guy who was more badass that day was the guy that killed him. Reports of Blackbeard's death vary, but the one I like the best involves him being decapitated by a Scottish Highlander. The Scottish guy's name seems to be lost to history, or at least I couldn't find it. To be honest, despite the fact that the guy who killed Blackbeard was Scottish, I still feel like I have a lot more in common with Blackbeard than with the guy that killed him. In addition to Blackbeard and other pirates, one of my newest heroes is a guy called Robert W. Service. This guy was born in 1874 and he actually grew up in Glasgow in Scotland. He was a bank clerk by trade, but he spent large parts of his life vagabonding around the United States and Canada. And it was during that time that he started writing poetry, and he became quite famous in his day. This is my favourite poem of his. It's called The Men Who Don't Fit In. I'm going to try and do it justice. There's a race of men that don't fit in, a race that can't stay still. So they break the hearts of kith and kin, and they roam the world at will. They range the field, they rove the flood, they climb the mountain's crest. Theirs is the curse of the gypsy blood, they don't know how to rest. If they just went straight, they might go far, they're strong and brave and true. But they're always tired of the things that are, and they want the strange and new. They say, could I find my proper groove, what a deep mark I would make. So they chop and change, and each fresh move is only a fresh mistake. And each forgets as he strips and runs with a brilliant, fitful pace. It's the steady, quiet, plodding ones who win in the lifelong race. And each forgets that his youth has fled, forgets his prime has passed, till he stands one day with a hope that's dead in the glare of the truth at last. He has failed, he has missed his chance, he has just done things by half. Life's been a jolly, good joke on him, and now it's time to laugh. Ha ha, he's one of legions lost. He was never meant to win. He's a rolling stone, and it's bred in his bone. He's a man who won't fit in.